And Mark, we finally get to the last team of the podcast. This was the team that came so close to going to the Super Bowl in Minnesota. It was almost the Philadelphia Eagles. I almost said Minnesota Vikings. That wasn't true. We were nowhere close. The Philadelphia Eagles against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Some would say, Ricky Widmer would say, that the Jaguars were screwed out of that win, WWE style, because the refs were paid off. Some would say that. I might be one of them, that the refs screwed them on a few calls in that game, mainly that pass interference call that I will still not let go. But this team is poised, I will say, to make it back to the playoffs, win this division. The thing I want to ask you, this might be a little kind of jumping the gun, but I want to ask you, just let's not beat around the bush. How far is this team going to go this year? Is a Super Bowl bid a realistic expectation for the Jaguars in 2018?
I don't know. It's a tough one to say because this defense is definitely really good, and Blake Bortles basically accepted his role of, I just got to not mess up because I've got Leonard Fournette here, and that's making things really
Sometimes
really nice
it's
for
all
me.
you need. Trent Dilfer didn't blow him out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there's less of those kind of quarterbacks, especially in the modern era, but it
mean,
works.
Trent Dilfer had a phenomenal defense with that Ravens team.
The thing that worries me most, I would say, with Jacksonville is, one, it's not a surprise anymore. Everybody knows you're coming now. But two, you lost some injured wide receivers, but they were still some really good, talented wide receivers. And I know that Blake Bortles isn't going to throw it all over everybody. This is a ride and die with Leonard Fournette in the defense. But I look at the receivers, and I'm not that excited about Moncrief or
Marquise Lee.
Marquise Lee. I like Austin Seferian-Jenkins, but, you got a bunch of guys who are just kind of okay receivers. So when you need to go out there and win a game, I don't know if I believe that it can happen. So fortunately, that defense is going to keep them in all these games, and they don't really need to worry about that too much. But that's my number one fear with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I for sure think that they can get back to the AFC Championship game. I just don't know if they're going to be able to go against a high-powered, once again, the New England Patriots, but even the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they can get it together, because they stumble. They're their own worst enemy. They stumble too much. I think they have trouble against these high-powered teams.
Do not, I repeat, do not get tangled up in the wide receivers. And I get what you're saying. Allen Robinson was a really good wide receiver for the Jaguars. Allen Hurns, the two Allens, were really good for the Jaguars. But when you look at it in the end, this Jaguar team went to the AFC title game.
They did.
Without either of them. So really,
surprising the world.
The way that I'm looking at it is based off of what I saw last year, and I know it was only 1 year, but based off of last year, they didn't have Allen and Allen last year. What makes someone think that this team can't do the same thing that they did last year just because they lost those two?
Sure.
And to me, with the wide receivers, the thing that I really like is, Moncrief and Lee, do they really blow the door off the hinges for me? No. But they are coming back. They know this system. A guy I'm really excited for is the rookie they drafted, G.J. Chark, out of LSU. This guy's got speed. This guy could end up developing into a good weapon for them this year and could be a sneaky target for them because teams will be like, oh, we got to cover Marquise Lee, we got to cover Moncrief, and he could find some mismatches and exploit defenses with his speed in this next level, the linebackers and cornerbacks. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, I don't think I'm as high on him as you are. To me, he's just been he's all right in the NFL. Wasn't what he was in college in my mind. To me, this offense is easy. Blake Bortles doesn't make mistakes. Leonard Fournette makes this offense go. Like, as long as the run game is solid, Blake Bortles doesn't turn over the ball, this offense will be fine. On defense, you're bringing back a lot of the familiar faces. You don't lose a lot. You add some little pieces like Tavion Bryant, who some were high on coming into the NFL draft out of Florida. You bring in a third-round pick, Ronnie Harrison, the safety coming in out of college. You get some key defensive guys. For me this year for Jacksonville, it all comes down to I am jumping the gun for sure. This team is going to win this division. This team is going to be in the playoffs. And my main question is just one thing in these playoffs. Can they beat the Patriots? That's the only question I have for this team. Because as we saw last year, they can beat the Steelers. They have no problem beating the Steelers.
I wouldn't say no problem. I mean, they beat the Steelers, but they beat the Steelers 45-42.
It was a thrilling game, but I would say that
the regular season game, sure, they won by quite a bit, but that was a different Pittsburgh team.
I have more confidence in the Jaguars winning a playoff game against the Steelers than I do the Steelers winning a game against the Jaguars. The only question for me is whether it's the AFC Championship game, whether it's the second round, when this team goes up against the Patriots, because to me, if this team wants to go to the Super Bowl, the way I see it, they're going to have to play either the Steelers or the Patriots in the second round. They're going to have to play the other one in the AFC title game. To me, I have confidence they can get through the Steelers. Can they get through the Patriots to get to the Super Bowl?
So here's the thing with the Jacksonville Jaguars is I do think they're a really good team. I do think they have a very good chance of winning this division again. Especially if Deshaun Watson doesn't come out and light the world on fire again or gets hurt or something like that. They easily can win again. So that being said, Leonard Fournette faced 8 men in the box more than any other running back out there. So there's that he has to deal with. You don't have either one of your top 2 wide receivers, which I understand they were hurt last year. But
well, really, if we're looking last year, your top 2 wide receivers, yardage-wise, are Cole and Lee, not Hearns and Robinson.
I mean, Robinson didn't play. Hearns played about half the season.
Exactly. So to me, I'm not really, when you say that's 1 and 2, they didn't have them last year.
Yeah,
so,
but let's be honest. Who's the number 1 receiver in Pittsburgh?
Coming into the Antonio Brown.
Does it matter if he's healthy or not? He's the number 1 wide receiver.
But if he was if they lost him and he didn't play the year before, all I'm saying is
if the 2 Allens were on this roster right now, they would be 1 and 2.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is based off of last year, they didn't play anyways. So really, to me, Cole and Lee are your 1 and 2.
And was this offense passing game good last year?
It wasn't phenomenal, but it got that with the run game. This offense doesn't need to blow the top off or take the top off the defense.
But when they don't have that opportunity, Leonard Fournette, like I said, 8 in the box more than any other running back last year. So you have that, plus the fact that now they know there's not a true reliable number 1 wide receiver out there. So that goes up even further. And that could potentially mean that Blake Bortles surprises people and maybe he performs better and he's going to get that, really take advantage of that. Sure, that's possible. So you have that coming forward. You don't have the surprise this year. We've seen this offense now. Blake Bortles understands his role now, which is, I just got to not mess up. That's something that kind of scares me, that there's not a reliable, great weapon for him to take advantage of, which is just going to be that people know the way to beat them is going to be holding Leonard Fournette to basically under 100 yards. Essentially, if you can get him on under 100 yards, you're probably going to be able to take advantage of this team because Blake Bortles isn't going to beat you. Now, the flip side of that, of course, is going to be the fact that in the regular season, it doesn't necessarily matter. You're going to win enough games to where you're going to the playoffs. The problem is pretty much similar to what you said is when you're going to play these teams that are really strong, they got high-powered offenses, that's when you're going to have some trouble that you're going to run into. And Saxonville can get to quarterbacks, sure, that's going to help. But all it really is going to take is teams to stop your offense, which we saw enough last year to know that it's possible with stopping Leonard Fournette, with knowing that Blake Bortles isn't going to beat you. And then offensively, just quick game. Keep it fast. Get the ball out of your hands really quickly, and then you can beat the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Out of last year, and I know that, the Steelers they didn't play the Patriots in the regular season, they played the Steelers. Last year, when I look at high-powered offenses that they played last year, I'll say the Steelers because of the Killer Bees. That defense only let the Steelers put 9 points on them in Pittsburgh.
Until the postseason when they gave up 42.
I'm going to get to the postseason, but in the regular season, the Steelers only put 9 up on them.
Yeah.
The Rams, the Jaguars lost that game, but 27 points is not bad. That is like, all right, as most teams are like, if we can keep it 27-21, we could win this game. Like 27 might be getting on the fringe of like, okay, one more and then, all right, you kind of let them score a lot of points. Rams being a high-powered offense, so I would say. You have the Chargers, only 20 points. I'll go down. The only other team to score, Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers got 44 on you. Yep. That was kind of a surprise. But then, like, the other flip side of it is you get games like the Jets and the Titans were 23-20,
or good
15-10.
Last year.
The main Achilles heel for this team, and this is where the offensive question comes in, is if an opposing defense can shut down Leonard Fournette, can Blake Bortles be the guy to win the game? Can he? Because, you look at his stats, like I'm just looking touchdown to interception.
Yeah.
In most of the losses, in every loss, 1-2 had more interceptions. 1-1 was even, but that was that close Jet game. It's like, come on, if you get one more touchdown, you win that game. Then you've got the Ram game, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. You don't want to see your quarterback only with 1 touchdown. The loss against the Cardinals, no touchdowns, 1 INT. And then the final 2 losses on the year, 2 touchdowns, 3 INTs against San Fran, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions against the Titans.
You laid it out perfectly for me. They didn't really play that many strong offenses last year. They did do well against strong offenses because this is a great defense. This is one of the best defenses in the NFL. There's no doubt about that.
Defense is going to carry this team.
The problem that they have is it's all on Leonard Fournette. It's all on him. And he was a rookie last year. If teams have figured out how to stop him, and it doesn't take that many teams to figure out how to stop them to do enough for the Jaguars to be in a spot where they're not the number 1 seed, so they don't get home field advantage, and now they're playing on the road, which always is a disadvantage in the playoffs. It's just those type of things. Without a doubt, like I said, Jacksonville is getting to the playoffs, but they're going to take a step back from last year. They're not going to be as good as last year. And
do you mean just step back in general, or like actual win-losses step back? Because they were a 10-6 team last year.
No, I'm not necessarily caring about the wins and losses. Okay. I'm just saying the team in general, I think is going to take a step back. I still, honestly, if I was going to guess right now, I'd say they're probably a 10-6 team again.
Okay.
This year. That's where I have them at, with maybe 11-5 if one of these games goes the other direction. But, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the regular season to me doesn't matter. I know you're going to get into the playoffs. I'm not worried about that. It's really when you get there that it starts to make me wonder.
The thing that matters about the regular season to me is there are a few games that I want to see you step up in. Week 2, when the Patriots come to Jacksonville, you got to step up in that one. Like, if you could steal a win from the Patriots in that game, that's going to help you in the AFC standings. Week 11, when the Steelers come to town, I'm going to circle that. That's a must-win game, too. You get that win, that's going to help you in the playoff standings. Then the other games I look at are more so like at Dallas, home against the Eagles. What are you going to do against those really good teams? Like the Eagles, we expect to be in the playoffs again. The Cowboys, I would say some think they're going to be second in that division. the Giants, depending on what we see, I only think the Jaguars are going to beat the Giants week 1 because I don't know what to expect from that Giant team right away week 1. But, like, this is a Jaguar team that I think, like, I was saying, like, oh, 8-8, 8-8, 6-10. No, this one, like, at the very worst, you're 10-6 again, winning the division. At the best, this is like a 12-4, 13-3 team. And they're 13-3 if they get wins over the Patriots, if they beat the Steelers in the regular season, and they beat like a Cowboy team.
Yeah, it's a narrow window for them. And like I said, you know, it all is going to come down to the playoffs. And what scares me is they don't face as many strong defenses as their defense is. But when I'm looking at teams that I think are probably going to be in the playoffs, I'm looking at teams like the Patriots, like the Chargers, like possibly the Texans, assuming Deshaun Watson's still going to be healthy, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Titans might squeeze their way in there. You know, the majority of those teams I just mentioned are high-powered offense kind of teams, which most of them, not all of them, most of them have above-average defenses too. So they're going to be able to go up against you. You know, I would be scared against teams like, of course, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Chargers, because of, actually the Texans, throw them in there too, because of their defensive fronts and what that can put up against you. Because, like I said, the key to beating Jacksonville is stop Leonard Fournette. If you stop him, dare Blake Bortles to throw the ball on you. And will he be able to do it a time or two? Yeah, sure. He'll probably be able to surprise a few teams. But overall, based on what we've seen, I don't expect it. And I hate to be that this is such a down segment for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but
for you,
when we're sitting there coming in saying you're in the playoffs, congratulations, let's move forward. Well, and you know, it just that's where we're at for me.
To me, another interesting thing that I think this team needs to change from last year is the end of the year. I don't want to say killed the team because they still went to the AFC Championship game, but they kind of sputtered at the end of the year. Like, they were coming off that Browns game week 11. I know it was a 19-7 game, and you're like, whoa, that's kind of close for Jaguars-Browns.
You know, with an 0-16 team.
But, I mean, that's a game where they were, what? That's 10 games into the season, 3 losses, so they're, 7-3 if my math is correct? 7-3 after that one. And then it's like the last 6 games, you go 500 to finish 10-6. And like, let's be honest, that Arizona game should have been a win. Blake Bortles gets 1 touchdown. They win that game. That Tennessee game should have been a win. This team probably should have been 12-4 last year. Let's be completely honest. Let's tack on that Jet game as well. That should have been a win if Blake Bortles gets 1 more touchdown. I hate to like put it all on Blake Bortles, but when you only get 1 touchdown in games, I'm going to put it on you. That's what? Arizona, Tennessee, the Jets. That's 3 games. This team should have been, let's be honest, should have been 13-3 last year. Now, I know last year is said and done. It's over. But the thing that I think coming in that this team can kind of hang their hat on is they're a good defensive team. They have pieces on offense. To me, the biggest thing is Blake Bortles. Is he going to be the quarterback that, and I know it's easy to say, oh, well, because like I said earlier, as long as he doesn't make mistakes, they'll be fine. He's got to get into the end zone a couple times. If Leonard Fournette, if it isn't going in the run game, you need to supplement that. You need to put the team on your back almost and say, all right, we got to find a different way to get into the end zone. I know that's quarterback working with coaches to find the game plan, but the thing I kind of think is a little bit of a confidence boost for this team is how they ended the year. And I know Jaguar fans, but Ricky, we lost. How can we end it on a positive note when we lost? You went into Pittsburgh. Yeah, some fans will say, oh, you should have lost that Buffalo game. Like, they almost Jaguared it in that first wild card game where it was like the Arizona game, the Jet game, the Titan game, the Brown game, where it's like, you should be winning this game.
That Bills-Jaguars game was extremely painful to watch.
But, like, after that, they turned a switch. And I know 45-42, That was the only reason that game was close, because towards the end of the game, the Big Ben started to go, and it was just match for match at the end of that. It's like a good tennis match when they're just volleying it back and forth. That's what it was late in that one. But that Jaguar defense came up huge to win them that game. Then you go into New England, and let's be completely honest. Not only, I'm going to just take the thing we can control, not only do you hold Tom Brady to 10 first half points and 24 points overall, that team was, let's be completely honest, they were one bad pass interference call from possibly winning that game. So for me, the Jaguars, they're not a team where it's like, yeah, for sure, book them in the Super Bowl. But I think it's time this year to say, instead of saying like, oh yeah, Steelers and Patriots are going to be the two that we expect, I think it's time to add the Jaguars into that, to where the AFC is the Patriots, Steelers, and Jaguars are automatically in, automatically going to fight, and then it's the rest.
I don't think there's a single person out there that's disagreeing with you. Everybody is saying that the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Jaguars are one of the three teams that are going to be in there. But it's just a matter of which one of those teams isn't going to be in the AFC Championship game. But I just don't want it to be like, I think that the Jaguars deserve the respect of, they could go into a playoff match, no matter where it is, home or away, with either the Steelers and the Patriots, and win a playoff game against either of those teams. I mean, I think it's possible, sure. But I don't necessarily... My hang-up is still going to be, we can rave about Ramsey. We can rave about the defense. They're amazing. We can talk about Leonard Fournette's rookie season. It was fantastic. But it was just 1 year. It could change for sure. But I'm going to give him the credit because I really like Leonard Fournette. So we can say that those things are good, but those things are beatable. How many teams in the modern era do go into the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl with a great defense and a good running back and a not good quarterback?
I mean,
there's about two.
The only one I could possibly think of is that Ravens team, but I can't remember.
I was going to say there's about two, and it's the Ravens both times.
Yeah.
So, it's not... And not that every quarterback that goes and wins a Super Bowl is Tom Brady, but the majority of the time, if you're going to win one of these games, it's because you're a really good quarterback. You can maybe throw the Seahawks in there too.
I look up that roster from the 2000 Ravens that they went 12-4 that year.
Trent Dilfer Ravens
won the Super Bowl that year. Just their offense, like they had, and he was a rookie this year. Jamal Lewis, rookie year, had just almost 1,400 yards on the ground for that team and almost 300 yards through the air. Shannon Sharp at tight end. Quarterback obviously was Trent Dilfer, but then it's like you have that stacked defense as well, led by Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the team, that's the model that I think of.
And there's no reason why the Jaguars can't be the next team to do something like that, for sure. But really what it comes down to for me is just that the Jaguars are better than almost every other team in the AFC, 100%. But we know how to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's just a matter of executing it. That's really what it comes down to. If a team can execute it, they'll be fine. And I know that people are going to say, thanks, John Madden. But, I mean, boom! There's a difference between how do you beat Tom Brady and how do you beat the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And that's why the one thing I will say for Jacksonville, I want to and I will put pressure on Blake Bortles this year. Like, yeah,
we put pressure on Blake Bortles for years.
I know. But, like, this is the 1 year where it's like, all right, Blake, you got a team. Like, those teams before were not real teams. You finally have a defense that can walk into any game against any offense and give them a run for their money. I don't want to see you going one touchdown, one interception. Like, there's a difference between not turning over the ball and just being safe. Last year was him just being safe. Yeah, I know he finished 21 touchdowns to 13 INTs. The least interceptions he had in his career, but also the least amount of touchdowns that he's had since his rookie year when he went 11-17 in how many games did he play? 13 games that year? That 3-10 while he was the starter in those 13, technically played 14, but he didn't start one. Every other year, like he had 35 in 2015. I'm not asking for 35, but I don't want to see games where it's 1 touchdown, 1 INT. That's going to drive me crazy if I'm a Jaguar fan.
When you're just playing it safe, you get a Tyrod Taylor type of situation where your team gets sick of you. It doesn't matter that you're doing well. It doesn't matter if you get us to the playoffs. If you're still,
we've had that discussion.
If you're
many
just
times.
about 3,000 yards, 16, 17, 18 to 20 touchdowns and not very many interceptions, great. But it doesn't do much for us if we're not winning games. And now Tyrod would have been more successful with a Jacksonville type of defense and a running back like Leonard Fournette, sure. But it just comes down to this. If they had just a little bit better passing game, and I'm not just putting on Blake Bortles, it's the receivers as well. If that passing game's a little bit better, we're looking at this team like many people are, wanting to. I'm saying this mostly for your sake, Ricky.
Yeah.
The Vikings. Like people want to say about the Vikings and going, wow, that's an absolutely complete team. And I would actually say that if you just had that better passing game, without a doubt, everyone's going to agree the Jacksonville Jaguars are a more complete team than the Minnesota Vikings are.
The quarterbacks are different. And
it just needs to be a little bit better of a passing game.
And I say the quarterbacks are different. I don't say it has to be a better passing game. I just say the quarterbacks are different. Whereas Blake Bortles, it's show me you can do something. Like it's poking the guy going, do something. Score a touchdown for Jesus Christ's sake. Whereas the Vikings, I think that this year with our quarterback is basically, all right, Kirk, we're giving you the best team that you've ever had.
Sure.
Show us what you got.
But I would say that what I'm saying with the complete team, people are looking at the Vikings saying there's a complete team. They're looking at Jacksonville saying if they just had a better quarterback, it'd be a complete team. But the Jacksonville Jaguars would be more of a complete team with that better quarterback because they've got the better offensive line.
And the last thing I'll say is don't expect Blake Bortles to go anywhere anytime soon because he did sign that extension to where he's not a free agent until 2021.
And I don't see a line of teams, lining up for Blake Bortles unless he's willing to be a backup or compete for a job.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section about the Jaguars. We did good, Mark, until this one went a little bit too long. They're looking at the logo on YouTube, and everyone on podcast services around the world are like, great, now you know what we deal with when we listen to the podcast on audio and not looking at Mark and Ricky's beautiful faces. But let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. I want to thank you guys for listening. Housekeeping here at the end. Make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. That's how you help out the channel more so than watching, liking, subscribing, listening on podcast services around the world. Make sure to check out our store. Link down below in the description. Also at mostvaluablepodcast.com. That's where you can get our MVP t-shirt and help support the channel as well. Mostvaluablepodcast.com is where you can also catch MVP each and every day. Last but not least, if you are on Apple Podcasts, you do have iTunes, make sure to find the Onside Kick, give it a 5-star rating, and let us know why you like listening to the podcast each and every week. Thank you guys for watching on YouTube, even though you're looking at our logo right now. Thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.